Baloch right of self-determination. Dr. Nazir Gilani, does the case of Baloch have any lesson for the Kashmiri leadership? Time and tide wait for no man. The phrase is ancient and it predates the modern English. It is unfortunate that leadership in Kashmir does not have any time to consider its role within the meaning of this age-old caution. It does not have time to learn from the example of King Canute, who, in order to silence his courtiers, indulging in flattery, demonstrated to them that the waves of the ocean did not obey his command. We have been busy in fooling our people that Americans were just going to appoint an interlocutor on Kashmir. It was in 1996 in Leicester, United Kingdom, that the conference, also attended by the representatives of undivided Hurriyat, was told that President Clinton's security chief had whispered in the ears of a Kashmiri activist based in USA that Kashmir would be independent by October 1997. However, the security chief allegedly had asked the Kashmiri leader not to ask him to dilate upon the merits of this secret. The Leicester conference was anesthetized by this gossip, and the delegates were asked by the Kashmiri activist not to ask him any further question in the subject. Over the years we failed to realize that establishment, not people, in Pakistan which claimed to provide us political, moral and diplomatic support would at one point be exposed as helpless as King Canute. They would be exposed because time and tide wait for no man. We have failed not because our case is weak but because we set out to fail. We killed a generation, best amongst us, and as a consequence killed the right of self-determination. Pakistan would support the people of Kashmir in defending the human rights and in highlighting the case of self-determination. It is unfortunate that the establishment chose its own time in the calendar for this support. The civil society in Pakistan, the judiciary and the parliament are trying hard to bring the establishment within the reach of rule of law and to make them subordinate to the constitution. Establishment may take time to give up its old habits, but the delay has added to the problems of Pakistan. Pakistan has a serious problem of missing people. The judges of the superior judiciary almost broke into tears, an out-of-character expression of sadness, when 7 out of 11 disappeared people, hooded and half-dead, were brought before it on Monday, 13 February 2012. The court was informed that 4 of the missing persons had died, ostensibly because of torture. The Chief Justice expressed his anguish and resentment over the wretched condition in which the 7 were produced. There are voices in Pak and Gilgit and Baltistan, which continue to be raised at the UN Human Rights Council against abuse of human rights. Pakistan has to answer the questions about the violation of human rights in Balochistan, part of its settled territory, and the human rights situation in the 2 administrations of the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Therefore, the moral authority of the government of Pakistan to raise the question of the violation of human rights in Jammu and Kashmir, Indian administered, has lost its merit. The loss of moral authority by Pakistan to raise the rights situation in Kashmir at the UN Human Rights Council or at any other forum does not mean that the people of Jammu and Kashmir do not have an issue with the human rights situation. The citizens of the state of Jammu and Kashmir will continue to sensitize the rights situation, in all the 3 administrations, in the manner and character of the respect for human rights in these areas. It means that there would be 3 Kashmiri voices at the UN voicing their respective concerns about the human rights situation. There would be a 4th voice from within the territories of Pakistan, in particular Balochistan. Unlike the people of Kashmir, the people of Balochistan have a special reason to be represented at the 19th session of UN Human Rights Council and celebrate. Their efforts have convinced some influential members of U.S. Congress in regard to their right to self-determination and to their own sovereign country. Congressman Dana Rohrabacher, who chairs the U.S. House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, has asked that the Baloch be given their right to self-determination. After chairing a congressional hearing on Balochistan, U.S. Congressman Dana Rohrabacher has introduced a resolution in the U.S. House of Representatives calling upon Pakistan to recognize the Baloch right to self-determination. The motion has been co-sponsored by House Representatives Louis Gohmert and Steve King. It highlights that the revolts in 1958, 1973 and 2005 indicate continued popular discontent against Islamabad's rule and the plunder of its vast natural wealth while the province remains the poorest in the country. there are many parallels between the people of Kashmir and the people of Balochistan. One of the main common threads is the distribution of the two people. The resolution introduced by Congressman Dana Rohrabacher and co-sponsored by House Representatives Louis Gohmert and Steve King asserts that the people of Balochistan that are currently divided between Pakistan, Iran, and Afghanistan, have the right to self-determination and to their own sovereign country, adding that they should be afforded the opportunity to choose their own status among the community of nations. In a statement from his office, Rohrabacher, who is also the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations, he adds, the Baloch, like other nations of people, have an innate right to self-determination. The political and ethnic discrimination they suffer is tragic and made more so because America is financing and selling arms to their oppressors in Islamabad. Meanwhile, the Foreign Office of Pakistan has strongly condemned the resolution, terming it as highly irresponsible and a blatant interference in the domestic issues of the country, adding that it is a violation of international laws. It should shake our leaders and their support base in Pakistan that Congressman Dana Rohrabacher has committed himself in full strength to the right of self-determination of the people of Balochistan. He has stated that an attempt to regain independence in 1947 was crushed by an invasion by Pakistan. Today the Balochistan province of Pakistan is rich in natural resources but has been subjugated and exploited by Punjabi and Pashtun elites in Islamabad, leaving Balochistan the country's poorest province. Expressing serious concern over violation of human rights in Balochistan, U.S. lawmakers have accused Pakistani army and its spy agency with brutal use of forces against the Balochs, while others saying they are greatly disturbed by use of U.S.-supplied weapons against the people of this province. Rohrabacher stated before a congressional hearing last week that Balochistan deserves our attention because it is a turbulent land marked by human rights violations committed by regimes that are hostile to America's interests and values. He said that Islamabad has refused to concede any legitimacy to Baloch nationalism or to engage the Baloch leadership in serious negotiations. Its response has been based on brute force, including extrajudicial killings, he said. Does the case of Balochi right to self-determination and to their own sovereign country have any lesson for the Kashmiri leadership? Author is London-based Secretary-General of JKCHR, NGO in special consultative status with the United Nations.